Okay, Brad, let's go ahead and let you start us.
Can't hear him.
Unmute, Brad.
Oh, these are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Hear you now.
Okay. All right, does everybody have their summary budget and our detailed budget in front of them? The ones that were sent out either today or yesterday.
Show it.
Okay, we'll start right there. As you can see, if you look at the estimated amount for 1920, which is the estimated actual, it's 43,492,626, and total revenue for budgeted for 2021 is 42,666,219. The drop there is due to lower local revenues. How I came about at the local revenues is just taking what I estimated to be actually received this year, which had to be cut due to the current situation we're in. And the one that's going to be affected the most will be the local option sales tax. So if you go to your detailed worksheet for general purpose school fund, we'll start on the first page for revenue, account number 40210. As you can see, the estimate for 1920, which will be the third column over, is just under 3.6 million, whereas the actual for 1819 was 3.85 million. That is due to the coronavirus pandemic and the loss of sales tax that will be coming about because of that. And of course, these are only estimates. This thing changes about every day, it seems like. There's emails coming in constantly about it. And as far as the local revenues go, we do meet maintenance of effort currently. There's about a $10,000, $15,000 difference in what we have and what we're supposed to have. So we're okay on that side of it, even though the revenues are a little bit lower than what they have been. As we move along, if anybody has any questions or any department heads have any input, please feel free to jump in. Does anybody have any questions yet?
No.
Okay, we'll move on down to the charges for current services revenue on the detail. And the two revenues, two bottom revenues, the community service fees children and community service fees children Carter Cares, those amount of revenues are offset by the same amount of expenditures. So those don't affect the difference in revenues and expenditures in total or the change in fund balance. The other, flip over to page 2 of your detailed revenue.
Yes.
If you look at account number 46511, basic education, you'll see I've estimated an increase of 362,474 over last year's budget and the estimated amount to be received for 1920, which amounts to around a 1% increase. And most of that is due to the online academy. the adding those students and then deducting the loss of students compared to the city. So I came out with a total of, let's see, just over 300,000 for the net increase in students. And the ADA, average daily attendance, from the report I saw from March, did go up around 0.4% for the county. And also included in that BEP figure for 2021 is teacher raises of 2%. Any questions about that? And we will get the preliminary April figures next week. They're calculating those this week. As soon as I get those, I will make sure to get the information out. Hopefully it'll be more than what's on this preliminary budget, but we'll just have to wait and see. And you'll see some zeros in that proposed 2021 column. That's primarily for grants, which we don't have the amounts for yet, such as the LEAPS grant, which is 46590-753. Also, school safety grant. Okay, we'll move on to the next section, federal government. And this amount in account number 47114, there's reimbursement from the federal government for meals, and that's from the child age care food program. And that's offset with the same amount of an expenditure. Any questions about those? And the bottom of that page, the very last line transfers in, that is the indirect cost from food service fund of $154,000, which is what it's been for the last couple of years. That brings us down to the next page. The total budgeted revenues is $42,820,219, which, as you can see, is less than the estimate for 1920, because 1920 includes certain grants that aren't included in the budget for 2021. Any questions about those? Okay, go back to your summary sheet for general purpose school fund. In the expenditure appropriations section, you'll see that the salaries and benefits and operational costs are summarized there. The total estimated for 2021 is $42,900,658. Okay, when you take into consideration the transfer in for the indirect cost and transfers out to the school to work program, come up with a net difference of minus 111,839 as it currently stands. But once again, just remember that BEP figure will change. Hopefully it'll change for the good.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, we'll go through each section. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Go to your detailed sheet, the first page of expenditures.
So here we go.
Okay, if you go down to the bottom line, you can see the budget for 2021 compared to the original budget for 1920 is $404,000 less. And when you compare it to the actual for 1920 with the budget for 2021, you can see there's around $900,000 decrease. We'll start on the very top line, which is 7110116 teachers. This does include a 2% raise, step increases, estimated step increases, and there's an estimated amount of cuts of 34 positions at $40,000 each, which results in a decrease of $982,756. Right.
Can you hear me?
Hang on just a second. Kevin wants to chime in.
I think I'm ready to go behind the jail cell and pick me up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, on the 34 positions as Brad has plugged in, right now, as we get out of this section of the budget and we get into the other pieces of the budget that you've got copies of, there's going to be several options as it relates to, where we would capture those 34 or plus positions. So whenever Brad and I sit down and we started looking to see exactly what it needed to get us close with this budget, it's we used the number 34. So as we move from Brad's worksheets and move into some of these separate sheets that's going to be following, that's all information for you all to look at, consider, and that's going to be put on the table. And then don't suspect that there will be any decisions or recommendations made this afternoon, but that I just want to make sure that you understood that we haven't identified any particular section, area, or department in terms of 34 right now, but we do know that that number gets us pretty close, doesn't it, Brad? Within what, 120,000, 111,000. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that those 34 positions are on the table.
Okay, yeah. Not too long ago, the deficit, instead of being 111,000, was around 1.7 million, and we went over every line in the budget and adjusted those that were, had a little bit of wiggle room to cut. And of course, that decrease in salaries for the teacher line item also results in decreases in some of the payroll-related accounts, pensions, Medicare, Social Security, medical insurance. And you also see in this regular instruction category some increases. The first one would be in the payments to retirees for their unused sick leave, as well as their retirement incentive/bonus. And that is projected for $200,000 for 2021. And that's in the bottom section in the non-payroll, you'll see an increase of $283,500 for Odyssey Wire, account number 711-00312. The budget was amended in 1920 for that charge. Also, if you'll drop down to 449 textbooks, you'll see an increase there of $320,000. That's because math textbooks have to be purchased in 2021. And if you drop down to a smaller item there, 524, in-service staff development. This is for the school personnel. And this will be funded with what they carry over from this year to next year, as well as their allocation for 2021. Any questions about this category? Okay, if you want to turn to the next page. Nothing really to go over here. It just increased by $8,700 in total. Does anybody have any questions about it?
It was an increase of what?
8,710 in alternative instruction. 71150.
Give me the number one more time.
71150. The increase of 8,700.
Okay.
So the increase was due primarily to a raise and step increase for teachers on the top line.
And that was 2%.
Yeah, plus the step increase.
It's just what the packet that I have that I'm looking at is just a lot different than what I'm seeing on the screen.
I can't see it.
Yeah, we're on 71150. Amanda.
No, this is not.
What,
71150. Okay.
Do you know how many teachers are funded in the this GP side and how many teachers are funded on the special ed side? Because I know they work with two budgets.
I don't.
I think to address that question, I think most of your positions out there are general. You've got a special ed position, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably coming from federal. Terry, is that correct? Is your special ed teacher, is she federally funded or state funded? Maybe she don't hear me. And then you got one teacher out there that's a math teacher, and that's Mr. Laney. He's from Unicorn, and they pay his salary. So that's most of it's general funded.
Most teachers you're saying in SPED are general funded.
At the alternative, we're talking about the alternative education.
She's talking about special ed.
Oh,
Kevin, can you hear me now?
yeah.
I have 3 teachers that are federally funded and the rest are GP. Now that's the teacher line item.
I can hear you clear as a bell.
Well, thank you.
Can I answer that question about the special ed teacher funding or add to what Terry said?
Yeah.
And this is just from memory and also from working with Dr. Whaley and Terry over the years. For them to meet the maintenance of effort that they have to do in special ed, the best way to do that is to keep the majority of personnel paid out of GP, and typically whatever raise there is every year, as well as step increases, just kind of ensures that they're meeting maintenance of effort every year in special ed. So typically personnel is taken out of that, and then a lot of the other operational things and things like the OT and PT materials, that kind of thing, a lot of that is in the federal side of that budget.
Sorry, I was talking about the alternative position, but we were talking about the special ed department.
That was the question I thought Dr. Boone asked, sorry.
Yeah. There's some confusion on the departments or location, but I think it got it answered.
Does anybody have any questions about the alternative program? Okay, we'll move on to the special ed program, which is 71200. Any other questions on this category? I didn't mention a while ago, but there's going to be a 5% increase in medical insurance premiums effective January 1, which will just be a 2.5% increase for fiscal year 2021. And the total for all categories of general purpose school fund is around 150,000 for that increase. That's included. I did. Are you on? Okay. Yep. The state is going to provide some funds for that medical insurance increase in BEP. Right. Okay, if no questions, we'll move on to the next category, which is vocational education, number 71300. Okay, for the budget for 2021, when you compare it with the original for 1920, you'll see an increase of 152,282. However, if you compare the budget for 2021 with the estimated actual for 1920, there's just around a $50,000 increase. Some of these, the original budget amounts for vocational education were understated. And you can see in the amended 1920 column for the budget, how much that increase was around $108,000 from the original budget. And there are various reasons for those increases in the budget, primarily due to underestimations to begin with.
Where are the educational assistants at that are assistants in the vocational programs?
Somebody answer that?
Answer.
Dr. Boone, this is Mickey. We only have two. We have two that are paid that come from vocational, and the other two aides are paid from special ed.
Okay, so what are their roles? So what do they do? I know one's at UNACA in the food or the meat processing program.
The two that we have that they're in shop areas where they're heavily laden with special ed children.
Okay, two of them are, because two of them are paid in special ed. But where are the two who are not paid out of special ed? Where are they?
Okay, there's one at UNACA. There's one at UNACA in the auto collision shop, and there's one at Happy Valley.
Okay, what are they doing? They're not special ed, so what are they doing?
Okay, the one at UNACA is works in the lab or the shop area in auto collision, and the other one is a general aide that moves about in all areas at Happy Valley.
So why are they being paid out of vocational?
that I don't have an answer to that. That's the way it was when I came.
Paid out of vocational general. That's out of general.
I'm not so sure that the state does not require assistance in those two places.
No, I don't think they do. But the one he's talking about that works with the auto body teacher, there's a classroom section, and then there's also the shop. And there has been a necessity to have that aid over the years to watch those kids as they split them up. Correct me if I'm telling wrong. And then the Happy Valley aid is an aid that works between the entire group of all of the vocational teachers, assists all the teachers at in the Happy Valley Vocational Building.
Yes,
That's very odd.
That's it's odd.
I'm hearing a bad roar. Hang on. Okay.
Any other questions?
What's our student ratio in those programs? What's our student ratio in auto collision at UNACA?
We'll get to that towards the next section. We've got that paperwork. That email was sent out today with some numbers that is attached to paperwork that follows some of this. So we can get to that here in just a second. They'll have all the ratios, all the classrooms and teacher.
At the high school level?
Yeah, CTE.
Okay.
And they're still working on the high school, but all those are attachments that's following Brad's budget piece. So be sure to ask that, and we'll be sure to go and look at that.
Dr. Ward, the one at UNACA she was originally in the meat cutting shop, and because of a doctor's, she had some problems, and so we transferred. There was a transfer made her from the meat shop down into collision repair, and then the special ed aid went from the collision shop to the meat shop. So that's how they got changed. But originally ours
Gotcha.
was in the meat shop.
Gotcha.
Can you hear me, LaDonna?
I can hear you great.
Okay.
And I can hear
LaDonna,
Mickey.
The one that Mickey and I transferred into that has a associate degree in agriculture, and he was an aide, and we just flip-flopped those because he was certified to be in the meat shop, and then she went into the special ed room.
I gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. If you look at line item 355, which is travel, there were some funds amended into the 1920 budget for student travel. So for 2021, there was $18,000 included. If I remember correctly, this was paid from the non-classroom category previously. Is that correct, Mickey?
We originally had those funds in travel, and then this prior school year, somehow it got cut, and then the board did a budget amendment back some 3 or 4 months ago when student travel was about to take place. There just wasn't enough to send our kids to the competitions that we normally do. So if you'll remember, the board allocated $10,000 or $10,000 from and put that back in there.
I remember.
Okay. All right, the other, another increase would be the line item 730 vocational equipment. It's showing a $65,000 increase, but that's kind of misleading. The budget for 1920 was obviously understated because the actuals for 1920, 18, 19, 17, 18 were far in excess of 25,000. And it was amended, 1920 budget was amended for 95,000. And the request for 2021 is 90,000.
Under other equipment, under the other equipment, that's a large chunk of change. So what's typically been purchased in other? Why is it considered other equipment and not vocational instructional equipment? Can you describe the difference?
Hey, Mickey.
Vocational instructional equipment and other equipment.
730 and 790.
Yeah, the bottom line.
Like other equipment, it's $10,000. What kind of things are purchased in other equipment?
That is, if I'm not mistaken, Nikki chime in, but that line item is a line item that has been set up, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong with this. That was a line item that's been set up originally for robotics and some of the funding of the different programs. Mickey is, now we're looking at 730 and 790.
Yeah.
100. Now the 100 and let's look out here at the proposed 2021, the 90,000 that's based on a prior year. I think if I'm not mistaken, that is probably some Perkins money. Mick, can you chime in on that? Is Mickey?
Just okay. I don't think that reflects Perkins money. The Perkins money would be one. The Perkins money was 124. I think that's a separate line item. Is it not, Brad?
Yeah, that's in the federal projects fund.
Right. And then hold on, let me flip. I'm flipping back and forth here just a second. Dr. Boone, in the 730 account, that's basically where we take equipment from, the everyday equipment that the teachers use to run their programs, everything from gas in welding shops, welding rods, their stipend or their allocation, classroom allocation, if you will, for them to buy their equipment that they need to run their programs every day without it being a Perkins item purchase, which we can't buy those things with Perkins dollars. So those are dollars that we have to have locally for them to buy things that are that's not considered payable through Perkins.
Okay, but the other equipment is what I'm talking about. That was 10,000.
I would have to look at that at the office because right off the top of my head, I can answer that.
Okay.
I don't have that stuff in front of me, but I can find out. I can look and see actually what we pull from that and answer that question. But right off the top of my head, I cannot answer that.
And you know, you can just call me LaDonna.
Okay.
I only use the doctor for the payroll department to recognize.
I understand.
Okay. Thank you, Mickey.
We'll put that,
Well,
we'll make a note of that and email that out. Yes.
I have some notes on my Excel workbook. Amanda, is there a way I can minimize this screen and open up an Excel workbook?
If it'll let you share.
Huh?
Brad, will it let you open up a screen share?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and try to share the screen.
Okay.
I'll stop my screen share.
Let's see. Exit full screen. Here we go. I don't have any notes on that one. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you, but we can't see your screen.
Okay. Let's see.
There goes Mickey. He's off to get a Pepsi.
Are there any more questions about vocational education category?
Thank you, Mickey.
you're welcome. I'm going to try to find out what that is, and I'll get back with you.
You're a good man.
Okay, we'll move on to the next page, which is health services, 72120. This category did increase a little bit from the original budget for 1920, as well as the estimate for 1920. This is mainly due to including some stipends that the nurses get from EMED, EMD. So that's offset with revenue, the 4633. And they requested to add a part-time nurse at Unaka High and Cloudland High for a total of $19,140. And of course, the benefits to go along with that increase, the Social Security and Medicare. And in the bottom section, non-payroll, 6 computers in line item 709. So that makes that the biggest portion of the increase. Does anybody have any questions about that?
The supervisor director is Sonia.
Yes.
Okay.
Beth, I'm
No,
sorry.
that is Beth Bear.
That's
Yes.
Beth Bear.
Yeah.
May I speak? This is Sonia.
Hey, Sonia.
Hey, LaDonna. That, the supervisor for that, this budget actually has coordinated school health and the nurses in with it, and it is a little bit confusing. But that supervisor that is there is the coordinated school health supervisor. I think there's 12% of my salary is paid by general purpose. But it's not, I don't know that it's reflected here. I think that.
Where is that? It's not that it's any big deal, but like, where is it? The 12% of yours.
Mine, that I can't answer. Brad will have to answer that, LaDonna.
It's in, if I remember correctly, it's in 3 different accounts. Part of it is in 72210 105. See if I have notes on that. I have notes on it somewhere. Can I get
That's
back with you
okay.
on that?
No, that's fine. The secretary or secretaries, is that Beth Bear and Sonia's secretaries and clerical personnel?
Okay, Sonia.
Okay, thank you. Let me look. It's so small. Amanda, can you make it just a little bit bigger? My eyes are too old for that. So I can see it. Clerical. Yeah. The 169, the part-time personnel, that's Casey Pasquale, who is Beth's assistant. And then let's see, the 162, there isn't anything budgeted there because we don't have, I don't have a secretary for the medical side. The only secretarial or clerical that there is in this entire budget would be Lacey Pasquale, who works with Coordinated School Health.
Yes, he's in 162.
Thank you.
189 are the part-time nurses.
Okay, well, the clerical, there's 18,000 there.
Yeah, that's Lacey.
That's Lacey.
Mm-hmm.
And who's in the secretaries, 161?
There's nobody in it. It's 0 for 2021.
Gotcha. Sorry, I see now.
Okay, and in account number 195, which is certified substitute teachers, that is actually substitute for nurses. Say nurses, not teachers.
Mhm.
In the computers, that's the only other thing that affects the difference, the variance between last year and this year's budget. Or the primary things that affect it. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Sonia.
If you'd like for me to explain that computer charge, what we did is this year we purchased 6. Gary had told us that with the new updates, our computers are so old, they will not even load the newest version of Windows. And so we replaced 6 of those this year, and then we will replace 6 of those next year. Some of our don't even have a computer. They actually use their EMD computer to do emails and things like that.
Okay, let's move on to category 72130. Other student support. Okay, for the guidance personnel, the increase of 30,217 for raises and step increases.
What's guards?
That was SROs for before and after school were paid there in 17-18, looks like.
That was SRO for the after-school program?
Yeah, before and after school.
Yeah.
They're not part of the contract or the MOU with the Sheriff's Department.
The before and after school, this is Sonia, the after school SROs are paid through the Safe Schools grant.
This, yes,
Right.
safety money.
They're down below in account number 309-541. Okay, if you'll move on to account number 322, which is evaluation and testing, you'll see a large increase there. And that is due to $90,000, which was previously spent from Title I funds that created a supplant, not supplement issue. And therefore it can't be paid from Title I no longer. It has to be paid from the GPS fund.
Will you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay. The 88,000 consists of an increase of 90,000 for
What
fund.
number?
It is 322.
Gotcha.
That's the programs for RTI,
Mm-hmm.
the required testing.
You can see my computer screen better.
There were some issues with the supplement, not supplant
Mhm.
requirement.
Jerry Beth, did we get that letter from Henry LaFollette in Knoxville?
Which one was that? I have several emails from him. I don't have a specific letter, but I have several emails. So if anybody needs that, I can share it.
Your best thing to do is go ahead and just email that out to the board.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to 72210. This is a portion of a central office. As you can see there, when you compare the budget for 2021 with 1920, there's an increase of 28,000. That's due to an increase in medical insurance, where it was under budgeted in 1920, and some
What supervisors are paid out of this?
okay, Diane Bowers, Peggy Campbell, Danny McLean, 30% of Jerry Beth Nave's salary, a portion of Leanne Carr's salary, and a portion of Sonia Miller's salary.
Is Ms. Hubbard's a portion?
Yeah.
Terry Hubbard, is she a portion?
Who?
Terry Hubbard.
Not from here.
Okay.
She's fully paid from special ed.
Okay.
Any questions?
Librarians, that's all over the district?
Yes.
What's the other salaries and wages? 30% of title. Jane's salary, added RTI position previously paid from. Is this a teacher RTI person? This is not an RTI coach, right?
Which line item?
The 189.
189. It says added an RTI position previously paid from
Title I.
Title I. So this is a,
What is that? I don't understand what that one is, Brad.
because we're not adding any RTI positions.
This is not a line item for
It was-
RTI position.
I'm looking, just the notes I have that it's a position that was previously paid for from federal projects.
We were going to switch one teaching position that had been paid from Title I to GP.
Okay.
So that would be the 711-00116.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be a school-based
Yes.
teaching position, not a central office RTI.
Addition, no addition, no.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's a teacher.
Well, that should decrease that by around 60,000.
But then it'll go into the 116 in the other category, right?
Yes, unless it's already included.
Okay,
May have been double counted.
I'll make a note and we can double check that.
Okay.
Good question. We may have found some money.
So the communication on 307, is that cell phones?
I am not sure. I'll have to check on that one too.
I don't think it would be cell phones, Brad. That's not a big enough figure. That's only what, 2,100 if I'm looking?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd have to look at that one. I'll write that number down, 7221022307.
Of course, there's nothing paid. It's coming back to me now. The communication costs for the school system were previously paid from a portion of it from this category. Now it's all paid from operation of plant 72610. And there's, of course, there's nothing budgeted in communication for 2021 and no cost for 1920.
Okay. And that
Thank
is,
you.
yeah, that is 307, right, Brad?
Yeah.
We don't have a question there, do we?
Okay.
There's nothing budgeted in it. There's nothing budgeted in it. Okay.
On 449, you've got textbooks at
Mhm.
0. And then we're going to have to purchase math. Now that we might not have to purchase the ELA textbooks this year because the state has never given us guidance to move forward. It's still in legislation, whether we can put that off another year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the math textbooks they're budgeted in 71100. Regular instruction classroom.
Yeah.
Where is that?
The very first page of the expenditures, 71100.
Let me flip back.
350,000.
71100.
Is that the 350,000 we looked at earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's first page, bottom.
The last update I got about ELA textbooks is that they pushed that to June 15th. It was April 15th and now it was May 15th. And now it is going to be, June 15th is when we have to have our recommendation in. That's the last thing the last email I got from Dr. Coons. So it's been pushed back 2 months. So June 15th is the last information I got.
Yeah, but we still have some school districts who were trying to opt out of purchasing them, and the legislation hasn't voted yet.
Right. We might not have to purchase, but we have to at least give our
Right. You have to put down what you would like to have, whether you purchase or not. So that's the 361. That's for the math and the ELA.
No, I was going to ask, before this, originally, I was going to ask that we have to get the ELA textbooks this year, which would have to look at coming out of fund balance. And then next year would be that the 350 in this budget is for next year for math. Since
Okay, we need to hold off on the ELA.
I just, until they tell me I can, right now, we're still up in the air. Like I said,
Yeah.
information I got was
We've got until June 15th based on.
last information, yes.
On this 141, the 71100, 163, 351,500, an increase this year of 10,000. How many teacher aides are we paying out of that?
Which line item is it, Brad?
It's 711-00163.
Okay, I think I have that because of something else that I've been working on.
Uh-huh.
There are 26 total people, but not all of those are full-time.
Okay. We need to get the current numbers, like we've got the current numbers on teachers and stuff, but we didn't get the teacher aides. And I think last year maybe, or year before, we had like 23 aides at Hampton. I don't know how many of those are special ed aides and then how many are general.
That line item that you just mentioned, there are 26 people out of that line item. This is for this year. 26 total people across the entire system are paid out of that. And like I said, not all are full-time. Let's see, hang on, I have a list. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14, 15. It looks like about 20 are full-time and the others are part-time.
And that's all of our SPED people also.
No. This is just GP.
This,
GP
Just
out of that line item you just mentioned.
and look on the, as we go through this packet, there's a sheet in there that addresses these aids and the locations that relates to the comparability and having to try to equal these aids out into different spots, positions to make things equal.
Gotcha.
That's some information that's on down in the packet that we'll get to here shortly.
Yes, that's page number 10. If you're looking at your pages, it's number 10.
Thank you.
No, I ain't got any numbers on it.
Okay. Any questions on 72210? Let's move on to 72215. Alternative instruction.
And that's where? Is that lift?
Yes, that's Siam Lift Academy. We do have a teaching position that a teacher that resigned back in March that we're not going to hire back. So that's a PE position. And so that's a position that would go towards the total number of positions that we have to, I guess, look as a total. So,
Do any of you all hear my dog?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Steve, will you take the dog outside? They can hear it.
Of course, for this category, there's just a small increase. That's because the salary for the supervisor was not budgeted for the correct amount in 1920. This individual was paid for a degree of 2, second level, but they actually had a degree, gained the degree on the 4 level. That's the reason for the increase.
What's the other salaries and wages? 189.
Let's see. That is for 2 aides.
Why do we have 2 aides at Lyft? Plus an,
That's a secretary, I think, Brad, isn't it? And 1 aide.
Judge secretary up here,
There's not 2 aides.
161 secretary.
We got
Since there's the secretary is 161.
Yeah,
61 is secretary.
I only know of one aide that's at left, and that's helps with the program credit recovery. So we'll have to check into that.
Yep.
There's $22,250 going to other salaries and wages. That should be included in the educational assistance, 163, instead of separate, looks like. No.
Yep, I agree.
Wrote that down to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Crap.
Just found some more money.
Keep finding money, we'll be ahead.
Okay, any questions on that category? Let's move on to 72220, special education. Of course, there is an increase there, and it's almost totally due to increased need for OT and PT services, contracted
Yeah.
services.
Yeah, those people are hard to find.
Any questions?
What kind of maintenance and repair does Terry have to call people for? It's no big deal. It's just interesting. Maintenance
I can
and
get that
repair.
to you. What's that line item? My glasses.
336.
336. I'll give it to you in just a minute. $336 is
Yeah, 3,100. 3,100.
okay. 336 is cost of maintenance of copies, printers, and other equipment by the SPED staff.
Gotcha. So they make you pay for your own out of your own budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
Okay, any more?
Water rentals. 351.
Okay, that is copiers.
Okay.
Any more? Okay, let's move to 72230, vocational education. You'll see a small increase there as well. And you plan to purchase some office equipment this year. Got $3,200 budgeted. And some Windows 10 licenses, 6,100.
Okay, secretary. We have one secretary. That's 27,000. Who is 46,568? That's a
Okay.
teacher salary.
That is Debbie Magid.
She's on teacher salary?
She's a licensed teacher, Dr. Boone.
We've got licensed teachers who are teacher's aides, Mickey, and they don't get teacher pay. So basically,
She's not a, LaDonna, she's not an aide. She's not categorized as an aide.
is she categorized as a secretary? Nope.
She would be more, I guess, categorized as an assistant.
She's categorized as an assistant?
I think that's what her role
Isn't
is.
it called a coordinator?
Yes, coordinator, and she is our certified grant writer. I guess basically for the system. She does
Does
a
she
lot of-
write grants?
Yes,
Yes, she does.
Well, good.
she is a certified grant writer. She has the certification.
So the 27,000 is your old secretary that's been real sick.
Yes, she's a bookkeeper.
She's sweet. Is she doing better?
She is. She's doing much better.
Good.
Any more questions? Okay, let's move on to 72250 technology. Okay, if you look at the salaries and benefits section, I think there's a notation beside the first line item, 105 supervisor director. That's where the board approved a $3,000 raise in 1920. And this is the other half of that 6,000 budgeted for 2021. The next line item, there was a part-time employee hired during 1920 and was just paid for a portion of the year, of course. I think he may have came on board around November. Anyway, he'll be paid for the entire year, 2021. The reason for a portion of that increase. Yeah.
That's the gentleman that works with Gary, right?
Right.
That's the gentleman, you got, or whatever, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What about materials and equipment and things for Gary and the boys? You know, like wire, equipment that it takes to maintain all the technology. Is that in some other part of the budget? Because this is a tiny budget.
Ma'am, Miss Boone,
Just call me LaDonna.
LaDonna, actually what's in there, I can get by with that. That is great. My biggest problem is the fact of the computers that we've been getting donated. We've lost about 150 to 200 over the last year or two. We used to get in around 350 every year, and if we get 150 now, used to I was just having to buy hard drives. Now the problem is replacing them. I don't have the donated ones to replace. So as far as the wire, we've wired the schools over the last 4 or 5 years. I don't need as much wire.
Gotcha.
So that's why we've cut a lot of this out.
Mm-hmm. But like whenever computers, like we purchased a lot of laptops for kids,
Right.
the Chromebook. So as they have to be repaired, I mean, they were brand new last year, but they're going to need repair this year.
Well, the good thing about the Chromebooks is I can buy the Chromebook screen for $12, where a laptop screen is costing me $90. So
Gotcha.
it's just way cheaper to replace a Chromebook than it is a laptop.
So where at in your budget do you have money to replace those with?
Maintenance and repair equipment, the 8,500 will cover as far as my repairs. And over the last year or two, I'm just gonna lay it out honestly. I have bought and stocked stuff, buying in bulk. I probably have enough wire to get by if we had a project right now without even having to buy any in stock, because buying one box was costing me $150, and if I buy it in bulk, I was getting it for 80 or 90. So it was cheaper to buy the bulk and stock it and use it than it was, because the wire don't depreciate or go bad. So
Well,
I
an
can get by
increase
with that.
An increase of $400 is just minimal. You've got a little teeny budget.
You can give me all you want.
It's bigger than it used to be, so.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more questions on that category? Okay, let's move on to, skip that next page. Go on to 72310, Board of Education. Okay, as you can see, there's an actual decrease there comparing the budgets for 2021, 1920.
So what's this right here? It says on 189, PY 3% raise for HS and FSPP.
That is in the prior year for 1920, a 3% raise for Head Start and food service was budgeted in GPS fund, but those were paid from the Head Start and food service fund.
Okay, those are for the supervisors or those for teachers?
Paraprofessionals.
Paraprofessionals?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I thought it was a 2%, so it is a 3?
Right.
3.
Yep.
I wrote back here on page 3 that it was a 2% raise.
Yeah, that's what the teachers get.
So the state is giving a 3% to the teacher aides?
No.
No, this is 1920,
Gotcha.
3%.
You know, my dog ate my glasses and I'm still waiting on my new ones. I ordered them from New York City. So with the coronavirus in New York, I've had a big delay on my eyeglasses.
Ouch. Anybody have any questions on any of those? And let's move on to Director of Schools, 72320.
Kevin, you're rich.
As you'll see there, there's a decrease of over 38,000 too. Of course, that's due to communication line 307 being moved to 72610, operation of plant. And a portion to technology as well. Yeah. Any questions? And next is the Office of the Principal, 72410. Yeah, mine is too. Mine is too. I've got an HP. I have a HP. Nope. Okay, on this, as you can see, there's been some categorizing of salaries. The school bookkeepers have been moved up to 119. Previously, they were paid from 161 and 162.
On 139, the assistant principals, we have people who are classified as assistant principals at the elementary, and we have people who are classified as teachers that are serving in a role of assistant principal, but they're just considered, they're a teacher outside of the classroom right now. So are they being paid as if they are an assistant principal, or are they being paid solely as if they're a teacher?
No, they're those teachers that are working a couple periods as an assistant are not being paid as an assistant. We've actually got, I think, 2 true assistant principals that's being paid as assistant principals. And that, again, LaDonna, there's paperwork coming up that I'll be able to explain those numbers.
Well, and we're paying them out of the general fund. So it looks to me like if they don't have enough to have a true assistant principal, then they need to use their Title I funds to pay for that.
Well, and like I said, we'll be able to show you the numbers as we get through here, but yeah.
They all, in my personal humble opinion, they need to be classified as the same thing.
Hey, Amanda, do you have a HP? Is that it? Do you have an HP adapter for Brad's computer?
I'll come down there and see. Give me just a second and I'll be down there.
Any other questions on this category? We'll move on to fiscal services. 72510. There's an increase there. It's primarily due to increase fees charged by the finance department for accounting, budgeting, and purchasing services, 10%. Any questions? Okay, move on to 72610, which is operation of plant.
What is that? The operation of the plant? That's just
That's
like
the cost to maintain the buildings and to,
That's the maintenance department.
no, maintenance is 72620.
Oh, I'm sorry. Operations plant, custodians and those categories. Yep.
Utilities,
watch.
mowing,
Find one.
to be. That's my one. All right. Any questions on this category? Okay, we'll move on to maintenance. 72620.
Hey, Brad, by chance, you can't give me that PDF file number from the email, can you? I'm looking for the title. I'm not finding that document. Email, they were all numbered 1 through, it looks like 12, or just give me a title of that. I'm not finding it right now. I'm sorry. And I've been following Amanda's screen, but she may be back at her desk.
Yeah, she's looking for a charger for my computer.
That's all right. I'll just go ahead, continue.
Tony, that's account 72620. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it I've been following along with Amanda, but now I was going to go to the PDF from the email and I'm just not finding it.
Okay.
I don't know which one it is. And I didn't want to open up all 12, but that's all right. I'll find it. I'll catch up. Please continue.
She come down here for just a minute, so she should get us back on track here in just a second.
On 188, Brad, what's the bonus payment of $2,750?
That's what was requested by the department head.
For?
In other words, there were some bonuses given in 1920, but those were, I think they were approved after the budget. was approved, original budget.
I don't remember voting on bonus payments.
Yeah, Christmas bonus.
That was,
Was that for all of the employees or was that just for him?
that was for
All of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Evaluation and testing, $60,000. What do we evaluate and test? It's just like you test the air and things like that when people have a complaint.
was that,
That is 322.
You know,
Yeah,
when people
asbestos
complain.
testing, air quality testing,
Yeah.
Steve, if you're on,
Sewers.
thank you.
We also, the reason, if I may speak, the reason we have so much is the new state mandate. Every other year, we have to do lead testing for the water. And that lead testing is usually around $30,000 just for the lead testing.
Plant, sewer plant. Oh, that's, I'm that same.
That's right. Forgot about that.
You don't use a lot of money in office supplies.
No, we, paper, pens, paper clips, staples. We do most of our records and everything on computer now and try to save money there where we can.
You don't have to print a lot.
Everything that we have to print is minimal. We keep paper records of like our monthly sewer test. Plus, we keep it on computer also. We don't do a whole lot of computing. We scan everything and keep it on a file,
Yeah.
secretary's computer.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to transportation, 72710. As you can see at the bottom, there's a increase, net increase of 96,000. And that is primarily due to having to purchase an additional school bus in 2021. Purchased one school bus in 1920, or will be purchasing it, but required to get two in 2021. Any questions?
Where does their money come from? How does it trickle into them? Does the state give them specific money?
There's some BEP, a lot of the transportation money is local money.
Mhm.
On 340 drug tests, 1350.
Mm-hmm.
Those, it's just something they're increasing for this year for testing more drivers, or what's the deal here?
Has the test itself went up?
Wayne, you there?
Yes. The state, more requirements with testing, and we're doing more testing evaluation to make sure that our drivers are safe. We do more training as far as safety training, things like that. We're doing more random drug testing than we've ever done before, which is a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to, skip a page, go to 73300, community services. This category includes several different programs, such as ESP, Carter Cares, CACFP, Family Resource Center, Leaps. So each one of those programs are budgeted separately and combined in this one summary page. And the LEAPS grant is not included in the proposed budget for 2021. Those totals are not known at this time. And all these programs, with the exception of Family Resource Center, are self-funded. And we do get a grant from the state for Family Resource around $30,000. The total for that category is 46, I believe. $46. Any questions on this one?
Where exactly is the Family Resource Center? Where is that?
Where's the resource center?
It's located, the office is located in the Great Lakes complex up there.
Oh, okay.
where The Miller's located.
With Sonia.
Yeah.
The rent that we have to pay Great Lakes and all that, is that included on this page?
It is paid, the rent is paid from operation of plant 72610. It's a total of 21,000 for the year.
I just confirmed that does include utilities. That's a pretty good figure for the amount of offices that we have at Great Lakes, 21,000 rent plus utilities.
17.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next page, which is 73400, early childhood education. And this is a grant funded program entirely. Any questions on this one?
Clerical, those are the teacher aides. You've got clerical personnel. Clerical personnel, 8,700. Who's that?
My guess is Karen Hill.
Crap.
I thought Karen Hill worked with Sonia.
That is Carol Clark.
Yeah,
For her path. They split that salary.
Yeah, this is Sonia. May I speak? I can explain that.
I don't know how I did this. Grab-
May I explain that one, LaDonna?
Yes.
Okay. Karen works 1/3 with pre-K. Well, it's thereabout, but 1/3 with pre-K, 1/3 with 21st century, and 1/3 with LEAPS. So yes, that clerical would be her 1/3 portion from pre-K.
Okay, thank you, Sonia.
You're welcome.
Any more questions?
I've got a question. On the medical increase, have you got a total dollar amount for that, for all departments?
I estimated at 150,000. Of course, it went down as well because of the potential position cuts.
Could you email me that later?
I can.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
And I've got a question. This grant fund will roll over to, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, to Head Start. So Carol won't be here this coming year. So all this will roll over to Leanne, correct?
Yes.
So Leanne's,
We're consolidating those two properties, yes.
yes.
Correct.
So Leanne will get $17,000 raise,
Is what now?
like Leanne, where's Leanne's first initial page? Like the $17,000 grant funded for the supervisor director, that will go to Leanne.
Yeah, it'd be a portion of her total salary, which a portion of it is paid from GPS currently, the rest from Head Start. But a portion can be paid from this grant since she's going to be over this program too,
Right.
instead of being paid with local funds.
Mm-hmm. That will help her.
Hey, Brad, I got a question for Lindsay Feathers. Is she on the?
Mhm.
I am.
Lindsay, did you get an email today from Miss Mead from the nutrition program?
I did. Yes.
Okay. What did you think about that email?
She didn't specify. She just stated that she just gave our information to Angie, but she didn't tell like whatever Angie may have asked. So I don't know actual details of what is being asked.
Have you reached out to her yet?
No, I have not spoke to Angie. No.
Okay. I know the city of Elizabeth has.
Okay.
It's something that we probably need to look at for the feeding program. If you would, communicate with that with me if you don't care.
Okay. I'll do
Thank
it.
you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions before we move on to the last general purpose school fund category? Okay. This category 76100, regular capital outlay. And for 2021, there's 853, 801.98 budgeted. And the bulk of it consists of the referendum sales tax for capital improvements, 620,000. And the building improvements, which is 136,000, which would come from BEP funds.
We'll take a pretty good hit in the next year as we start trying to accumulate our sales tax money for our referendum.
Right.
So next year, we would probably be projecting as much as 40% less than what we've been getting.
I don't know if it would be that much or not. Of course, it depends on when the freeze lifts.
Yeah.
Of course, if this situation does continue, it'd probably be necessary to revisit the budget and, if necessary, amend it down at some point here next year.
I know, but today, like from my school district, we went from 5% down to, we were cut down to 2% on BEP.
Mm-hmm.
So what did Carter County learn? What have we been notified about our BEP current?
We have, it'll be next week.
When will we revisit this?
It would be, of course, I'd be watching the revenues once we start a new fiscal year and see how those come in compared to
What time is it?
1819 as well as 1920. And if those aren't materializing, then we'll have to take a serious look at decreasing the budget.
So more than likely, that's something we're going to have to really look at.
Yeah. Probably September. I mean, I start every month, of course, watching the budget, the revenues. We'll see what it looks like in September.
what would be your recommendation going forward once we get that information and it is a negative?
Okay, you're talking about for next year's budget,
Yes.
when we're in next year.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Of course, if the revenues are or less, the revenues that are coming in next year are less than what they have been historically, it most likely means some sort of trend, the revenues going downward. But there's so much of this stuff that's up in the air. It's really hard to kind of nail it down.
How soon can people and businesses start to reopen and how quick does life become normal again or somewhat normal? So right now, that's the big question.
Right.
For everybody to understand.
Right. And, we're hoping that there'll be some sort of financial support from the federal and state government. I've heard a little bit about maybe some stimulus funds come to the school systems, but I haven't seen anything in writing on it.
Yeah, let me share some information on that. I found out that we are looking at somewhere between $300 and maybe $400 per student, which is about roughly on the bottom end of it, about $1.5 million. And made a couple of phone calls today, talked to Del Lynch. Now, out of that 1.5, my question was, how can that money be used? And right now, the best that we can understand and the best guidance that we have is that money, that stimulus money that we have just discovered in the last couple, just in the last day, we had a Zoom meeting with superintendents, and Carter County is looking at 1.5 has to be used in building a virtual technology infrastructure. I guess for any future occurrences or shortages or outages that school system may have. Now right now is the best, clearest guidance we have. We did pretty much get good clearance that and an understanding we cannot use this 1.5 to plug holes in our budget, but we will be looking and talking here. I've got a call into Rusty Crowe. He's on the educational committee in Nashville, and of course talked to Dale today, but we'll try to clarify and make sure that how we can use this money that is coming from stimulus. And there might be other packages that eventually comes through. So that's all we know right now. Right.
Yeah. Let me take a little break. 5-minute break. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Take a 5-minute break.
Absolutely.
You just thinking like what I was. I was sitting there, actually, I was getting ready to slide off.
Zoom. Right here. Okay, looks like we're breaking.
Everybody back?
I'm back.
All right, let's roll. Okay, we'll go over the Central Cafeteria Fund next. Fund 142. We'll start with the total sheet, which is a summary amounts for revenue and expenditures.
There's this. That's that central cafeteria fund.
Okay, first, if you'll look at the estimated
You said you didn't get that.
2019-20 column, you'll notice that the revenue is forecasted to go down significantly. That's due to a decrease in the reimbursement from the federal government for the lunch and breakfast meals served. Whereas the expenditures are not decreasing nowhere near the amount that the revenue is decreasing. But anyway, for the budget column for 2021, estimated revenue is $3,337,943. Appropriations, $3,859,094, plus the $154,000 indirect cost to the general fund, which results in a decrease in fund balance of $667,051. If you'll notice that the estimated or forecasted decrease for 1920 is $861,392. Its food service fund balance is taking a big hit from the current situation.
If we were providing more meals to the more children, that would be offset, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not making up for the difference in meals served during the regular school year. So we're still doing emergency feeding, and we're very fortunate to be able to reach as many children as we are right now. But that's still not making up for the amount that we would be doing weekly. We're losing at least 12,000 meals per week that we would have been, if we were in school, we would be serving. We serve this week over 15,000 meals in 2 days for 5 days worth of breakfast and lunch this week. So our numbers are increasing, but it's still not what we would be doing if we were in school.
Lindsay, the superintendent group has drafted a letter and has mailed it to Nashville based upon what you just said, the shortage of revenue, wondering if there's going to be revenue coming in to help supplant or plug back into the food service budgets on the lost meals. So maybe that might be part of there's about 3 different packages, I think, in terms of stimulus, but that might be something to keep fingers crossed about.
Yeah, I hope they realize that school nutrition programs across the state are hurting right now. I mean, we're still paying our staff like normal, and that's wonderful for us to be able to do. But there's still costs, like I just know with our district that what usually I start seeing a profit in April, and April, May, we start seeing, the profit for us. With school being out, all of the school nutrition programs are hurting right now. So we're not, getting reimbursement for meals. There's not payments for lunches coming in to offset those costs. There's not a la carte sales. So we're not having revenue right now. So I hope that USDA and some of the federal government realize that school nutrition will be taking a hit this year. And then hopefully, when things get back to normal, we're able to sustain our program, in the future. So there's just a lot of unknowns and uncertainties right now.
Okay, let's move over to the detailed revenues and expenditure sheet for the central cafeteria. You can see each particular revenue and how much the decrease for 1920 is projected to be from last year, 1819. But the amounts proposed for 2021 are close to what it's been in a normal year, most recent one being 2018-19. So hopefully school will be open next year on time. And if you'll turn the page, or any questions on either revenue? If you go to the next page, which starts expenditures. You want to take this, Lindsay?
I'll answer any kind of questions. You can go ahead if you want.
Okay, as you can see, there's some increases in the cafeteria personnel.
And that increase, this current budget for this year, we'll be doing a budget amendment to cover for projected end of year. We're looking at with the 3% paraprofessional raise, and then also adjusting to the $10 an hour rate that we've done this school year. We're looking at spending $945,000, well, over $945,000 this school year. So next year we wanted to go ahead and put in, a little bit higher number. That way we're padding that number. And hopefully we don't have to do as many budget amendments for next school year as we've had to do this past.
Amen. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, if you go over to the next page, which is the non-payroll section. As you can see, there's an increase there of compared to 1920 budget of 611. But 236,000 of that is for USDA commodities, which the state requires that it be budgeted now. And some other increases would be in, I think, food supplies. No, there's no increase there in food supplies. Food preparation supplies.
And food preparation supplies, that includes anything that's really non-food that we would get from our GFS distributors. So that could be trays, utensils. That also goes to purchase smallwares for each of our kitchens. We do a smallwares order at the beginning of the school year each year. So we replace pots, pans, utensils, tongs, trays, carts, anything that they would need to be able to serve the meals for school nutrition. It comes out of that line item.
Any questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to the last fund, which is the Head Start Fund. Whereas its official name is Other Education Special Revenue Fund. This fund is self-supporting with funds received from Upper East Tennessee Human Development Agency and the USDA for meals served by the Head Start program. if you'll look at your summary sheet, the last column, budget 2021, the budget is balanced. If you want to take a look at the detailed revenue and expenditures, you'll see the USDA, the revenue 47114, 110,000. That is offset by food supplies of 110,000. And the rest of this budget, the operations of this budget, is funded with the contributions from Upper East. Any questions about this budget? I don't remember if I mentioned it or not to begin with, but the school department has a requirement, maintenance of effort requirement in local funding. And currently, the way this budget is set, the revenues for general purpose school fund, maintenance of effort is met for 2021. Slightly, but it's still met. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Who's up next, Kevin?
Yeah, Amanda's going to put her, yes, Amanda's going to put her first screen up here, her first shot. Let me remind you that everything that we're going to be looking at and discussing will is putting it on the screen for view and for discussion at and then at some point in time next week, hopefully we'll get BEP figures, see where the numbers come in from BEP, and then I guess come back after having some discussion with and what I would like for you to do, call me and talk about, especially any part of the first budget, call me, or most importantly, probably Brad, but on the pieces we're getting ready to go through, give me a phone call and give me some feedback and give me some input in terms of what we're looking at. This first screen here is teacher pupil ratios. And this year, in past years, we've used a budget approach. I guess I've always termed it as a net zero. Once you understand how many positions, for example, in years past, it might have took 7 positions or 8 positions to balance the budget. With other areas like kindergarten through 3rd grade, 4th grade, because of reading and that particular grade level, we have let just sort of hold some lower numbers this year. And what you're looking at here is a projection as we have looked across the board. These are K-8, and let me get started real quick, and then you can ask any questions. When we looked across the board at Central, we identified that there's 1 position, and I'd ask Peggy to, anytime you need to, chime in, you sit with me.
I'm off mute. So if
Okay.
I'll
Just chime in and we crunch these numbers together. So you got 1 at Central Elementary, and basically if you look at the numbers at Central, We could lose 1 third grade teacher, adjust 5th grade to 2 teachers, and 6th grade to 1 teacher, which would be a net -1. Cloudon Elementary, as the numbers look, you could lose 3 teachers, kindergarten, the 1st to 2nd grade. And then as we get into some of the discussion, LaDonna, that you had brought up earlier in some later documents, possibly an assistant principal based on the comparability or the compatibility and equity formula. Are there any questions on the first two? That's on Central and Cloudland. There's a total of, and what we did is when we sat down, I told Peggy and myself and Danny and the supervisors, when we went through, to be fair and consistent, and we had to even back up and go back and look at different line items to make sure what we had done at one location we were doing at the other location. Now these numbers are tight. So, you know, as, and that's why I told Brad that we wouldn't just go ahead and put 34 of these particular positions as we look through the other parts of what we're going to put on here. We'll have different options that we can look at. Central Elementary and Cloudon Elementary, are there any questions? We work these directly with the cluster averages and along with the K3 and 4-6 and then 7-12 in terms of teacher pupil classroom ratios. Amanda, you want to scroll up? Next one's Hampton Elementary. I've got my thing in the way here. I can't hardly. Hampton Elementary, we are looking at right now five positions. Could lose one teacher in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th. Happy Valley Elementary, 4 positions, could lose one teacher in grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when we are talking about these numbers and you're looking at these numbers on the screen, it puts our averages well tight in some areas, but well in the guidelines of what the teacher pupil ratios state guideline requires. Half Valley Middle, 4 positions, could lose a teacher in grades 5. I think in the discussion with Catherine, there is a problem with grade 5, but right now we have actually could lose a teacher in grades 5, 6, 7, and 8. And on the adjusted average, you're still falling underneath teacher pupil ratio of 25. Now those numbers are tight. In some locations we have these numbers that are pretty tight. The option or the decision that we'll have to make is do we anticipate enrollment increasing and pushing those numbers over to where we're going to have that teacher, and on numbers like Happy Valley Middle School where they're as close and as tight as they are, we would have to make that decision. There's 1 or 2 choices. Go ahead and initially look at it, make the adjustment, see what the numbers come back after school starts next year, and then readjust or hire the teacher that you need to fill the spots based on increased enrollment in any particular location.
Kevin, what are the state requirements like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd? What class sizes are out there for the state for everybody?
Okay, you can have 25 in kindergarten, 25 in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. But when you take the average of that school, the average has to be 20 when you divide it all together.
I have it pulled up on the screen so you can look at it real fast.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Amanda.
You're welcome.
4 through 6, they can have 30 in each class. But when you combine at that particular school, their 4th through 6th grades, their average as a whole, like if they've got 6, you would divide that, and it has to be 25 or less. 7 through 12, they can have 35 in a class, but the average has to be 30.
Those are the guidelines that we use as we look through each one of the schools and locations. So,
thanks.
Amanda, Hunter Elementary.
Yeah.
Hunter Elementary, at the bottom of the page, could lose 5 teachers in grades 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8. And let me say this, we are having some discussions with our high school principals, and we're having a Zoom meeting tomorrow with our principals. So there'll be some individual conversations with principals as they get the elementary principals, K-8 principals, as they get to look at and see the document. The high school principals will. We're talking, and the high school scheduling is a whole lot more complicated. And of course, you have to look to see and make sure you got people in places to where you're going to give students the required offerings for graduation. But we're working on that, and we'll have that information hopefully within the first part of the week in terms of what we think we can do with the high school. Okay. Any questions on, if you look in purple, the purple is the adjusted average. And for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, those adjusted averages falls in line with teacher pupil ratios. On the top, Happy Valley Middle, and on the very bottom, Hunter Elementary. Okay, next. Kingberg Elementary could lose a teacher in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 7th. Again, we are running into the assistant principal that is paid for in with the general purpose money. So that's something that we'll talk to here about a little more here in a second. Little Milligan. I can't see my number on Little Milligan. I think Little Milligan could lose.
Gosh.
Emory.
Who that was. Little Milligan could lose 1 teacher, but here's the disadvantage of taking a teacher. If you take a teacher from Little Milligan, you would have to actually create a split classroom. I don't necessarily like split classrooms. Back years ago, I was part of a 4th and grade split classroom, but that would have to be how you would combine grades 3 and 4 if we looked at a teacher at Little Milligan. Like I said, these are all just we're putting everything on the table, just options to look at for us to have a discussion about. Okay, Amanda. Unique Elementary, looking at 3 positions as it relates to teacher pupil ratios. The adjusted would keep, let's see, should have 2 2nd grade classes, 1 3rd grade class. So you cut 1 in each of the 4, 6, and 8. That would be some subject content areas that we'd have to have a discussion, especially in the 6 and 8. But as you look down underneath scenario 1, the adjusted gross average is 14.5, 19, 21, and 27. And 27 sounds like a large number, but it falls within that guideline of a maximum of 30. Valley Forge Elementary could look at 3 And the adjusted averages would be 16.5, 16.5, and let's see, fourth grade. Let's see, that's 27. Peggy, I'm sorry, is there something, have we missed something on that number right there?
No, they can have 27.
Could lose one teacher in each grade, kindergarten, first and fourth.
Mhm.
Okay, so that K3 cluster, it's not K4 cluster. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Okay, I forgot, it's K3. That, I think, brings up a total of about 34 positions. Now, whether or not we can actually pull and, but what we wanted to do is basically we wanted to put everything in the pupil student ratios as allowable by the state. And based on what you just looked at, that is within the guidelines of what the state teacher pupil ratios they fall in line with. Are there any questions about this document? I think there's approximately 34. And then of course, right now we've got one at Lyft. That makes a total of about 35. Just to give you an idea of what we've just looked at and how many it comes to number. Next piece, Amanda. Hey, here's some projections or some enrollment figures. Currently you have 228 Central Elementary. There's one principal. Y'all have got this copy. Rather than me going down the list and going over this, you can take the time and look at the current enrollment at the different locations, and then basically, like I said, as we move into next week and we get our BEP and we understand about what it is we need to do in terms of positions, you have this information, so you can look at that. If there's any questions, please feel free to, let's have that conversation. Amanda?
Dr. Ward, I wanted to mention one thing on the projections. The way we do these, we do not know how many we're going to have in kindergarten, but we've got to plan something. So when we're doing these numbers, we look at what we had in kindergarten currently this year, and even though they're moving up to first, we do that number again. So that's how we get our numbers. One of our high schools, UNACA, it says their projected enrollment is 366. Now, I want everyone to understand that's the projected enrollment if every 8th grade student from Kingberg goes to UNACA, every 8th grade student from Hunter goes to UNACA, and every 8th grade student from UNACA Elementary goes. That never happens. But you understand, when we did this, is if all of our students stayed with us and they moved up. So I just wanted, if people saw that and saw that number, I just wanted to explain how we try to come up with something that gives us a start.
Hey, Amanda.
Are you ready to get the next document?
Yeah. Okay, this is the supplant or supplement, not supplant. It's a provision that comes through ESSA requirement 2018-19. This was part of the Happy Valley Middle School problem we had this year, where we had to come back in, I think prior to Christmas or right after Christmas, and put a person in place at Happy Valley Middle in order to meet federal requirement. As we've looked at this, and this is something that we put on paper, but it's up for discussion. And as you know, in terms of making adjustments, but we tried to be fair and consistent as we look down this, the list. You have a principal, a full-time principal of school for 150. Hampton Elementary has 2 funded full-time principals. You know, that's something that we'd have to take a look at based on the federal and the guidelines of supplement not supplant. Assistant principals are 1 per high school. K-8 proposed 1 per 400 students. That would give Hampton Elementary, Happy Valley Middle, Hunter, an assistant principal. The schools that falls outside of the student number, that the 2 locations that have principals with a lot less students, assistant principals paid with GP is Cloudland Elementary and Kingburg. So that's an issue. Proposal, Cloudland would lose a AP position. Kingburg gains a full-time assistant principal, and numbers is reflected by half per school at 600. Counselors per school with 200 or more ADM, Valley Forge, Little Milligan would split a counselor, and they currently do. Librarian, 1 per school with 200 or more ADM. Little Milligan uses an assistant as a librarian. So we'd be looking at taking the Valley Forge librarian and having her at Valley Forge 3 days a week and at Little Milligan 2 days a week, just like we do with the counselor. And then when it comes to the PE position, we try to create equity. It's 1 per 300, 430 ADM. Little Milligan does not have a PE teacher. Little Milligan Valley Forge would also do a 3-day, 2-day PE split based on the 2 enrollments at the 2 of those schools. Computer lab, K-8, 1 per school with 200 more ADM. Little Milligan uses an assistant. In the lab, Central uses an assistant. A proposal would be Little Milligan and Valley Forge would actually share computer lab teachers on a 3-day, 2-day rotation. The BEP doesn't specifically fund computer lab teachers. Those are all GP funded for K-8 schools. Related arts, and this is one that I guess is just all over the board. Either a music or art teacher per 300 ADM. Little Milligan Valley Forge shares an art teacher. Kingburg and Central share an art. Issues, Hampton has neither art or music. An assistant provides arts. Happy Valley Middle has arts and band. Unaka Elementary has neither. Cloudland Elementary has music with 265 kids. If ADM is lowered, then the full-time would have to go to Kingburg as with 262 ADM. Assistance, and this was one of the areas that was brought up earlier in a previous discussion. 1 per 120 K-8, high school, 1 part-time alternative learning lab. Each one of the high schools have that. Hampton High School, Happy Valley High School currently has a 0.5 half part-time position above and beyond Unaka and Cloudland. The proposal is redistribute assistants in K-8 to make 1 per 120 and create equity that we're looking at creating. High school assistant principals proposal, due to nature of the meat cutting class and some of the safety things, I think we're going to have to look and use some common sense where aids are needed based on safety and areas, and make some kind of exceptions. But this is all for discussion. We can also look based on the fact that you got 2 high schools with 400 plus students, the half part-time assistants would be put in place at those locations. That creates equity and justifies those half of positions that Hampton and Happy Valley has. And the next, at the very bottom of that page, you have the current enrollments as we have them right now.
And those are the current projected enrollments, Dr. Ward.
Those are projected.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm sorry. I took those off of current ADM reports.
Okay, so those are not projected to be higher, or that might be higher. They're current.
Those enrollments, whatever the day was that we typed this up, I took the ADM reports from that day.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's just all these that are listed are what we've got on our projected enrollment numbers. So,
Okay, the projected enrollment numbers will be high because use one example, Kingberg. If the trend continues, 8th graders from Kingberg, you have probably at least 70% or 60% of those kids go to the city. Amanda, do you have other documents? Do you have the aid document?
Yep. Are you ready for paraprofessionals?
Paraprofessionals, yes. Now, this document is a document that shows who's at what location. And for example, Central Elementary, we're good as it relates to the ADM and the funding. We would have Cloudon Elementary, there'd be 1 less aide. Hampton Elementary, they would actually get an additional aide based on their number. Let's see, Happy Valley Elementary needs a halftime aide. Let's see here. Needs a halftime aide for 3.5. Help me, Jerry Beth, that need a halftime aide.
Yeah, they have 3. Based on that formula we use, they need 0.5 more.
Okay, they have 3, and for the formula that is needed, they need a half a position. Hunter Elementary, and we're finding that there's problems, and this is GP. Let me remind you, it's what we're looking at is GP funded positions, not special ed or any other fund. Happy Valley Elementary, and we're finding the problem exists in some of the larger schools where there's inequity. Needs 3.5 positions or an additional half of a part-time. That's Hunter Elementary. Kingberg, good. Little Milligan has 1, and I think that's good. Unique Elementary, they're in good shape, and Valley Forge would actually, they have 3, and I think they would actually lose 1 based on the equity of these. Happy Valley Middle is one of the locations that's probably the worst. They would actually need 3.5 to create equity. So if you look at the very bottom, there's different scenarios that we could look at, but Hampton Elementary, Happy Valley Elementary, Hunter Elementary, and Happy Valley Middle would actually need to gain aides to create equity. Valley Forge and Cloudon Elementary would actually have to lose an aide to that I guess could be filtered over into one of the areas that where we have the need. So basically, after you look at this and after all the numbers shake out, 1 full-time and 3 part-times will need to be hired in order to create equity across the K-8s and elementaries in terms of how we have our aides positioned right now in these different locations. And like I said, one of the things is we looked at this and tried to create the equity. The larger population schools were the schools that had less GP funded aides, whether it be part-time or full-time. Are there any questions?
I don't have any questions about the teacher aides. My question just goes to the assistant principal side.
Okay.
We have certain positions that are classified as
Title teachers.
assistant, teaching assistant principals. So you have a teaching assistant principal separate from an assistant principal.
They're the two individuals or the 2 locations that has assistant principals. They're actually listed as an assistant principal. And then, of course, the other locations, the other different
4.
locations where you have an assistant principal doing part-time duties and still has teaching assignments.
Could I say something? Could I say something, Dr. Ward?
I'm sorry.
I said, could I say something?
Yes. Mhm.
Which Brad may remember, one day when I met with him, he printed the list of people who are actually paid out of the assistant principal line items, who are paid, truly paid as assistant principals. And it's not all of those people, I think, that you're thinking. Which I have that list. I can actually do a screenshot of that and email that to everyone. The one at Keenberg is not technically listed as an assistant principal.
She's listed.
No, she's classified as a teaching assistant principal.
So she's not technically an assistant principal.
Not paid as an assistant.
I mean, I have no idea what the supplement is. I'm basically.
I think is it $750 a year, Brad?
Jerry Beth, it would be good if you could go ahead and just mail out that document that you're talking about.
I will do that.
Are all of these people certified in administration that are assistant principals, that are teaching assistant principals?
Teaching assistant, no, LaDonna. I could probably think of 2 or 3 locations, but what we'd have to do is really sit down and identify those people and look to see. But there's some that are, but there's probably some that are not certified. They're probably
Dr. Ward, I've got that. I can look that up here. I've already let you know.
Okay.
Well, if the principal is not in the school, then I assume that they're the ones left in charge. I also assume if they are classified as a teaching assistant principal, that they're also doing evaluations.
Not unless they've been certified, and I don't think you can be certified if you're not an assistant, if you don't have your assistant principals.
Well, you're not supposed to, but
Yeah,
I'm almost thinking that their title should change if they're really not a teaching assistant principal. It's like they're an administrative assistant to the principal. Is what they are. Because by saying that they are a teaching assistant principal and by giving them assistant principal duties, in reality, if they're doing the same job of an assistant principal, they need to be paid as an assistant principal.
I agree.
And if they are not being paid as an assistant principal and they are doing those duties, that's not fair to those people.
Right. But now back to your evaluation piece. In order to be able to evaluate or do evaluations on the teachers. They'd have to be certified and they'd have to actually go through the training, the evaluation training. So,
But if
no.
we're going to have anyone in those roles, and we're even they're either going to be used as just as an assistant to the principal, or they are going to be actually administrators. So it needs to be they're either an administrator or they're not. And if they're not an administrator, they cannot do teacher evaluations.
No, and they shouldn't be, should they, Peggy?
No, I
No.
can find that out also, Dr.
Yeah,
Ward.
but I'm pretty sure that I'm correct when I say that we don't have anybody that's not certified and that's not been certified to to do the evaluations, doing evaluations. I can guarantee you that.
So what classifies a school from having an assistant principal versus those who get a teaching assistant principal?
Well,
It was student enrollment is how it really began, the size of the school with the student enrollment. Am I not correct, Dr. Ward?
yeah, well, to look and try to create equity with assistant principals, and this is, again, this is something we've got to each year now we have to fill out, and it's just become a problem, I guess, in the last couple of years. But this is not a last year problem. This is not a 10-year ago problem. This has been something that has sort of been going on for the last 15 or 20 years. But if we're going to create equity with ESSA to where whenever Dr. Nave has to fill this report out each year and then the director, myself, has to sign it, then it has to be pretty much, we have to have equity in these places to justify what we're signing. And that's why we're putting this on the table. And there has to be guidelines and there has to be equality. And LaDonna, I guess the whole thing of putting this on the table is to have discussions and as it relates to assistant principals that are paid as assistant principals, it will be based on the enrollment at that particular location. Now, if it's an administrative assistant who has no certification, that has a teaching role, but does a period or two that helps out the principal in the smaller locations, and that's how we need to do it.
Dr. Ward,
Well,
Jerry
okay.
basically sent me that document of the assistant principals. Would you all like for me to screen share that real fast?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Can everybody see that, or do I need to make it a little bit bigger? Is it clear?
Yes. So they're all classified as assistant principals.
Those are the ones that's being paid as such. Yep. Those are classified. And each one of those, let's see, I was trying to look through here. There it is, Kim Walsh. I couldn't find her name. She's on there.
And all of our assistant principals are certified in administration.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we would have any teaching assistant principals that would not have their certification as well.
Well, if you've got one in the building and it's somebody that, if you've got somebody in the building that's certified and you can make them or put them in that role, then, that's one thing. But if you're a school and you don't have somebody that has that certification and cannot fill that role, then you have to find somebody that you can work with. And I guess just like you said, relabel them as teacher or principals, whatever it was you called it.
It's like they really need to be doing more teaching duties than they do administrative duties. And my suggestion would be that these people who are going to be, we need another title for what they are, what they're going to be. And we need specific job roles, what percentage of the time that they're required to be having teaching duties versus the percentage of the time that they can actually be serving in an administrative capacity.
Yeah, that's good.
My concern is that we may possibly, I don't know, not even assuming, but it could possibly be that we have a teaching assistant principal with that specific title, not getting administrative pay, doing administrative duties, a whole lot more than they're really teaching. So if the school numbers are such that they do not qualify for an assistant principal and they qualify for this administrative assistant or leadership assistant, whatever it is, they just need specific duties of things they can do, can't do, and what percentage of the time that they need to be working with students.
Yeah, a schedule that and a very clear job description. But now, you know, that's the whole thing. And I guess the whole part of putting this on the table is we don't have an option. We've got to create equity. And that's the big piece of the whole discussion. You know, what is equal and how do we label or categorize these people and, you know, drill it right down to job descriptions and specific duties and what is the schedule outside of the
Dr. Ward, I looked through and all of their teaching assistant principals and of course our full-time, they all have the administrative degree with the exception of Little Milligan. And at one of our schools, the teacher has it, but he has not put it online yet. He has not turned everything in for it to show on licensure. So they all do have the degree except for those two exceptions.
I just hate for these people to really be doing the job of assistant principal and not get paid for it. So without, like Dr. Ward was saying, without a specific cut in stone job description and percentage of the time that you will work with students versus percentage of the time that you won't, then those times that you are being an administrative assistant, what will those duties include and what will they not include? Because if they're only getting a supplement of $750 and they are a leadership teacher, then they need a lot more time with students. If they did, either they had the numbers to have an assistant principal or they didn't. If they get the
that would be the question. And one of the pieces of documentation is to see the schedule. How much time is this teaching assistant or leadership assistant, whatever it's eventually called? How much time are they actually serving in the role as a teacher? And then how much time are they being utilized as assistant or leadership principal? So
Let me interject. For the sake of time, we need to move on. If we've got any budgetary issues we need to resolve, we've just got this meeting until 8:30.
Yep.
So we need to this is a good point. We need to discuss it, but I think we need a sidebar meeting for it later.
Okay. Amanda, are there any other documents? I think we're about through.
Something she sent us on CTE.
I have the CTE numbers if you want to look at those or if you want to hold off on those.
I tell you what, on those CTE numbers, we just sent those out today. So take a look. I've had an opportunity to sit down and take a look at CTE. Now, you know, CTE is one of our programs or one of our categories where we have a lot of kids that's participating. As you look down that list of the locations and what the numbers are, that's you know, that again can be part of our discussion. But all this has been put on the table because as it relates to equity, we need to redistribute and fix it. And when it comes to the teacher pupil ratio, we need to use some good judgment, some common sense, And I'm sure after tomorrow, and once I meet with the principals, we'll extend that conversation. And like I said, there's going to be some of these classes, some of these schools, or some of these teachers it's going to be real close. We have one or two options. Do we go ahead and leave that person in place based on the anticipation, or do we go ahead and make the cut, and then in second, third week of August, if enrollment's up, hire a person for that position? That's all part of the conversation. I invite for you to communicate with me, talk to me, and let's identify what positions, because I think right now, Brad, you have budgeted somewhere in the neighborhood of about 34. Is that right? And we have more than that. And once we are able to look at the high school, we'll have some additional recommendations as well. But Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
I've just got a question. What's our timeline, Brad, for getting the budget approved for you to take to the county commission and all that sort of thing? Where are we?
It'll need to be approved before May, let's see, 11th, I believe.
So the budget has to be approved before May 11th?
Oh, never mind. We have to appear before the budget committee on the 27th, April 27th.
Okay. So what do we have to have for you before April 27th?
The budget approved.
The budget approved. So sounds like we're going to have to make some tough decisions, Kevin, on the, as I understand it, these 35 positions is going to help us balance this budget. Is that correct?
Well, 35 positions will. It could be the fact that we may be heavier in certain parts.
I can't hear you.
We have, we've got to make some tough decisions, Jerry, based on the fact that, and we've got the K-8 numbers. We're going to have some high school numbers, and looking at these CTE numbers, our CTE numbers are pretty good. In a few spots, they're a little bit low. So, CTE is a program where our kids have really excelled, and but as we have to look and make decisions, make recommendations, we'll come back and I guess at some point in time, once Brad gets the BEP figures next week, and then Brad will, or Jerry will have to have some individual dialogue. I guess that's where we'll have to talk and try to see what and where we pull these numbers from.
This question I've got for the other board members. Do you all feel comfortable enough to vote on this budget on the 23rd?
This is LaDonna. The only way that I can feel I'm ready to vote is if I know the criteria and the methods that are going to be used to determine which teachers, which 35. I need to know. I need for Dr. Ward to let us know what method he's going to use in order to determine, and I need to know the percentage of time that these teaching assistant principals will be spent with students.
What about the other board members? What do you think?
One thing, Jerry, that I thought about, you discussed, maybe we could check on retirees and see about a bonus, maybe to get them that would be willing more to retire, and maybe we can keep some of our younger teachers.
An incentive bonus?
Incentive bonus.
I would be good with incentive bonus too. Cutting out 34 teachers all at one whack is really going to mess with the economy. Everybody's been through a whole lot. It's coronavirus. It's everything in the world's coming on. And I can't see cutting 34. This should have been coming on a little at a time, and I'd like to see attrition take a lot of this. So
that's a good point.
Do we have any projections on what the attrition will be? Has anybody got a guesstimate on that? How many anticipated retirements do we have this year and that sort of thing? Is there any information at all there?
Peggy?
Peggy, let me unmute you. Hold on. Okay, it must be muted on your side, Peggy, because it's not letting me unmute you.
Okay, I'm trying. Okay, can you hear me
Okay,
now?
you're good.
You're good.
Okay, I was trying to get on and I couldn't. Yes, as of right now, we have two high school, one CTE, one high school teacher, one elementary PE teacher that have already turned in their retirement papers. I have one that says he is definitely, it's a high school history teacher going to, but he has not completed it yet. And I have two that are on the fence. Now, I know what Mr. Bowers was discussing, and I have a paper that says exactly how many of our current teachers that are working for us have 30 plus years. Like if they're wanting to do a bonus, that they're currently working for us and they have 30 plus years. So are you saying that you might ask those 30 that have 30 plus years a higher bonus? Are you wanting to reduce it for less years? You guys let me know and we'll get you the
What I was thinking about was the 30 plus years. And I'm like Kelly, you know, I think 35 positions or 34 at one lick is going to be real tough.
Mhm. Yes. And LaDonna, I know you were talking about, I have at a couple schools that teachers have already stated that there are certain teachers that they're not going to recommend them be hired back for, you know, other reasons. So of course that would be one of the things that we would use. I know one school that I have, I was told today that one of the teachers hasn't given me the paperwork yet, but they've already bought a house. Her husband got a job somewhere else. So they're going to be leaving. I was looking at those. Of course, I can't make that work with 34. And probably one of the fairest ways would be to start with our last hired people and try to do it in that way. I've been going through each school and looking and seeing who are the non-tenures and how we will work this out. But this is a challenge. It is a challenge to be told I'm going to reduce 34 teachers, but I will do whatever you guys want me to do.
Idea around and see if anybody might be interested.
On the bonus.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, can you give me a number? I can call every one of the people on this list. But
Hey, so when we look at that, so there should be a math calculation on number of years on that pay scale that we have, that, you know, it's a 30-year teacher. We've already defined that. They're at minimum have the 4-year degree. So if we look at that and then we back that down to, I don't know, let's look at a 10-year period. So that delta,
I know every one of their names and I know what their degree is.
okay, so that delta in pay between, say, 10 years and 30 years, in my opinion, it still has to be advantageous to the system to remove them. So we can't make it the full difference of that delta, but if it's half that delta, do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I do. Now, you know, the thing is, if it's a elementary teacher, well, we're not replacing that one. So that's definitely going to be, you know, we won't be replacing that person. But this list of names, they're not all elementary teachers. And we could, you know, so we'll just, you guys let me know and I'll make calls.
It might be that we're going to have a lot of movement within each individual schools. And teachers need to be prepared at this time that just because you've been teaching a particular grade level for a really long time, it might be if your particular school is having to lose, say, 3 teachers or 4 teachers, they need to have an understanding that they might be shifting and teaching a new grade level.
Looking at the names and the numbers, LaDonna, I think with the exception of one elementary school, well, there may be 2, I will say 2 just to be safe. They have enough non-tenures, but that doesn't mean just because they're non-tenure that would be the one we would let go. But I do have one, I'm positive of one school that we have them down to lose 4 positions. that particular school only has one non-tenured teacher, that it's not like a specialty, like special ed or something. And so at that school, I will definitely have to be moving 3 people to different schools.
And people's certifications. If you have a and it might boil down to your certifications.
Oh, absolutely. I've been, yes, I agree, LaDonna.
Some teachers are only certified in K3. So it doesn't mean they can shift to 4th grade.
Well, they can go 4th grade if the school has it. Not that they're going to be the best choice, but they can. The law says if they are of a pre-K through 3 and they're at a school that has a pre-K through 3, that can teach up to 4.
That's right, but not above 4th.
No, not above. No.
Right.
I was pleasantly surprised. I was very worried at the beginning that my problem was going to be the upper grades and everyone's going to have these specialty. They're going to be just math or they're going to be English. But I've discovered that that's not quite an issue because a lot of our teachers have taught with us several years, and they have the grades 1 through 8 endorsement. So that does help a little as far as flexibility.
One thing you got to remember, if we're going to, like the bonus, it would have to be enough to where it would entice people to go ahead and step out.
Absolutely, Mr. Bowers.
$1,000 or a few dollars. And if you, like you gave them the 10 above the 5, you would gain it back in the teacher's salaries in 1 year for the younger teachers. I mean,
and if they're elementary, we just wouldn't be replacing them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But the younger teachers will be making less money than the ones that you're talking about retiring. So if we get the money up enough to where they'd be interested, and it would probably take care of a lot of our problems and not have to even turn anybody.
Is that something that we would have to have the board to vote on at the next board meeting, Dr. Ward?
Yes, board would have to decide on what kind of retirement bonus that that's going to offer. Now, let me say this, Jerry, in closing. Over the years, and like I said, it's been a situation where you manage a budget, and some years back we closed range and we created some sustainable money for a period of 3 or 4 years. Since then, every year it's sort of like we have been fighting against several different things. We are fighting against decreased enrollment. We are fighting against the fact that, we have decreased revenue that is especially coming hitting hard this year. So all I'm going to say is as you move forward out of this budget, which is a very challenging budget, and I agree with what Kelly said. I hate the thoughts of seeing 32, 34 positions that we have to let go. But when it comes right down to it, there's no way whenever you're starting out with a $1.7 million budget deficit that you're going to make up that difference without looking at and taking a hard look at teacher pupil ratios in your so we're at that point where this is a very difficult time, very difficult decision. I will say that next year's budget is going to be a much more challenging budget than the budget that we have before us right now.
I agree, but let's don't worry about that one right now. We got enough worries right now to take us through the rest of the week. My only concern about the criteria we're going to use to eliminate positions is this. We've got good young teachers out there that's probably going to lose their jobs. We got older teachers that's retired in place already that's going to stay there because they want to. And I don't know how we get around that, but that's the problem I've got. I hate to see a really good, talented young teacher lose their job because I know what they're going to do. They're going to go across the county line for probably a sizable increase. But that's my concern. And I don't know how we do this. I know we got the TEA and we got other folks out there dealing with this, but we got to come up with a solution. I like Keith's approach on the incentive. If that works, that would certainly be an incentive for me if I was close, you know, to have that kind of incentive looking at me. But again, that's my concern with losing these teachers.
Well, I know that Donna said a minute ago that these teachers need to know with all the moving around and everything, hey, you might be teaching at Cloudland today and you may be at Unaka next year. Or
Good point.
you may be at Happy Valley and you may be at Cloudland or, you know, they got to know it's not going to be what it was. It's got to change.
And that may be an incentive in itself, because some people might say if they've got their time in, they may say, you know, I'm tired of this stuff. I'm just going to go home.
Right.
That's right. They may.
But we got to do something. It's just, I just hate.
They do need to know now. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do for our workshop is next week? Do we want to plan on having the workshop same way we've done this one tonight?
Yes, I enjoyed it.
Okay. We'll be discussing obviously the budget next week. And hopefully between now and then we come up with some good solutions. That sounds like we really need to get this thing approved so Brad can take it to the committee, the budget committee, on the 27th. So
what kind of collaboration can we expect as an entire board about the criteria and method used to determine, as well as the dollar amount that we want to use as an incentive?
In my opinion, if you don't give them at least in $10,000 range extra, that's going to get them interested in doing it. I know it's a pretty good chunk of money, but you know, that much money would influence some of these people's decision. And maybe 30 years up, everybody just have a different idea about it.
We just need a method of communicating and to be able to collaborate. So if you all will let us know the best way that we can communicate and collaborate to discuss these things.
We can't do it all together because of sunshine law. You'd have to do it one-on-one.
Call me, call Peggy, call each other one-on-one. And then of course we've got the meeting coming up next week.
The workshop. Yeah.
Next week's a workshop. 2 weeks will be the meeting.
Can't make decisions in the meeting anyway.
And I'd like to get somebody to give us the amount of money, you know, the difference in like a non-tenured teacher and their salary in one like 30 years. So we'd have that.
Is that a Brad Burke request, or is that something we could work on through the school system, Kevin?
My secretary, who's got a master's in accounting and teaches in accounting, she did this last year. You remember when we considered?
Right.
So,
yeah.
And remember, it wasn't going to be cost effective when we were simply replacing an older teacher with a younger teacher.
Right.
It'd be nice to have that by next week's workshop if we could get it.
Yeah.
What are you exactly? Okay, you want us just to give you some? We'll get it. She's already got it, so we can give you scenarios. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All you have to have is the pay scale.
Just the pay scale.
Yeah.
Oh, we have that. We've got that. But
so we'll be prepared to talk about that in next week's workshop then.
Okay. I'm going to let you, as we were talking, I just skimmed through the list of the 30-year people. And I think there may, and now let me stress, may be 10 elementary people in this group. And knowing some of the names, they will not, they may do it.
You know,
that might be the.
Hey, Jerry, Brad wanted me to relay a message to you. We could actually put our workshop, our hearing with the budget committee off from the 27th of April to possibly May the 7th. So would you like for him to go ahead and see if he can just do that and give us a little bit more time?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Okay. So go ahead, Brad, and do that.
I was under the impression that all county meetings have been canceled for the month of April anyway.
Set for the budget.
20th.
The budget hearings are starting on the 20th, and I guess they're still operating.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you can give me an unofficial amount that you want me to talk to the teachers that fall in that category.
Don't know that you can do that right now. I think that's going to have to probably be a discussion and then a vote. Outside of that, we're going to be operating out of the boundaries of what what their means are, but
Okay.
we
So
can.
I really can't say anything until after we have the board meeting,
Well,
right?
I could talk to each individual and I could sort of just get a census and we can say, we can maybe create a range. It could be, between here and here, but until I think the board decides and then puts it in a vote and then establishes a figure. I don't know that they can elaborate right now and tell us.
I can.
So.
Well, I mean, I could just say on my own, I could say, hey, if they were going to give you 10,000 more, that's not any board member telling me anything.
Yeah, well.
I think if we go back to Kelly's comment earlier, we need to, when we're talking to people, we need to let them know about what's coming, that there's good possibility they may be in a different school next year.
Absolutely.
Or a different classroom. And, if I knew that going in and then you give me an incentive, I may be more enticed to take that incentive.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, I know we have a very important policy that we're going to need for you all to vote on at the next board meeting. Will that be an issue moving it up to May, Dr. Ward?
Yes, the policy you're talking about is the one where we've been provided to pay our paraprofessionals.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, the one where everybody, where we're all getting, where you're going to continue to pay.
That will be in their packet for the workshop and then for the board meeting for that to be part of the business. Yeah, we need to get these policies approved.
Is that in May? Will that hurt for us to be bumped up to May, the meeting?
I don't think he was talking about moving the meeting to May. That would just be presenting it to the county commission.
I think we're keeping our meeting scheduled right now at the same
Oh,
time. It's just
okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Okay.
So the meeting will be on the 23rd, is that correct?
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, let me ask you this.
Okay, I
Since
understood.
we have the luxury of, am I muted or no?
I can
I can hear you.
If we have the luxury of approaching the workshop, the budget workshop on the 7th of May, would it be our advantage to push our board meeting back another week in April, to give us a little more time to work through this stuff?
What do you mean board meeting? We're already at 23rd. You talking about moving it to the 30th?
Talking about, would it be an advantage for us to have an extra week to tie some of this together and we have it scheduled for the 23rd. I'm just asking you as an option.
I would certainly like to be able to have all loose ends tied so we could vote on this budget and get it done. So if moving it to the 30th helps, I'm in favor of that.
Brad just walked out, but I would think that Brad would say that if we had an extra week with BEP coming next week and then us having to have maybe another discussion and get some of these questions answered and put the word out as you all decide and come to a number in terms of what incentive you're going to offer. Brad, do you think it would? Of course, you're looking at moving us to the 7th. Just from a budget standpoint, as we move forward, instead of the 23rd, if we give ourselves an extra week and say moved our board meeting to the 30th, from your end of it and the budget and the finance piece, what's your thought?
Any conflict with that or not, if there's a meeting on the budget committee.
Okay.
Probably not.
Okay.
Since it's more
Well,
27.
what we'll do is we'll let Brad check and we won't change anything. And then Jerry, I will communicate with you and let you know what Brad tells us about moving maybe ours up to the 7th. And then you can think on it and let me know.
Okay, so we're still going to have the workshop next week. 5:30. Is that good for everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
When are we going to have the high school numbers, Kevin?
I'm going to be, I got high school people to talk to. Probably be first of the week. I will email you some information as it relates to the high schools. And like I said, just taking a little bit more time to crunch those. Danny, you got anything to say? Danny's been working with me on the high school and talking to some of the principals at the high school. So
we've talked to a couple of them, you know, we had the conference calls with them. But we got 2 more that we need to sit down and have a conversation with. So hopefully by Monday, Tuesday at the latest, we can have some high school numbers to you.
Okay. All right, guys, I think that's all I've got.
I'll call them.
That's all I have. Has anybody of the board members got anything?
Good night.
Good
night, Chet.
I'll second that.
I do appreciate it. Very good meeting.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We'll do this again next week.
Okay.
Thank you all.